and welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Like its Facebook page, subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and listen in audio form on Spreaker. Ed, we got quite a few things on our plate tonight, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Thankfully, it's not too much of a loaded menu that we're accustomed to dealing with. But past couple of days have been busy for our local team, so they'll be giving us plenty of stuff to talk about.
Yep, we got the Red Wings, the Lions, the Big Ten tournament, and of course a little Jeff Moss Detroit Sports Rag taste with some big, surprising news. But first off, the Red Wings have traded forward Jakub Vrana to the St. Louis Blues for forward Dylan McLaughlin and a 2025 seventh round draft pick, and then they traded forward Oskar Sundqvist to the Minnesota Wild for a 2023 fourth round draft pick. Not to mention they traded Stephen Camper, a defenseman, to the Arizona Coyotes for future considerations. But all in all, they've sold. The week before they now those last two trades were prior to the trade deadline, but before that they traded Hronek and Bertuzzi after extending Larkin, their captain. So all this shows that the Red Wings just are not quite ready for not quite ready to contend for a Stanley Cup playoff spot.
They're not ready to get to that next level yet, basically. They made progress, they made development this year. They probably overperformed or peaked a little bit ahead of schedule. If you want to say that, that's fine. But as what Steve Yzerman said himself in the press conference, in the aftermath of making some of those moves, um, he really was his mindset going into the deadline was not to buy in at all. That wasn't his plan. That wasn't his original thought process because he himself would know better than anyone the progress that this will take for this team to take the steps needed first to rebuild and then to contend. They've gotten the building part pretty much all out the way, but it seemed like they wanted to again be ahead of schedule in terms of the contending process. Now, some of that is still possible, despite with their recent struggles. But you can tell between the moves that they made before and on the trade deadline, that was what Eisman's true intentions were for what he thought this team's ceiling could be for this year. Especially when you consider the fact that Vrana, for whatever reason, whether issues of his own, issues that Eisman decided to not be public about out of respect for Vrana's privacy. But for one reason or another, Vrana just wasn't able to work out and be a proper fit here in Detroit. So I think it was just the best move possible for both sides involved, and Eisman was able to do that. Now, as you can see here, it's gotten us more draft capital, gotten us more moves, more picks and assets you could potentially use, whether it be to trade back up or to trade against someone else. Or if you feel content to staying where you're at to pick a young up and coming star, then so be it. But you have an options of what to do instead of just letting Vrana continue to be a healthy scratch after healthy scratch, or in the case of Hronek or Bertuzzi, you're not going to pay them long term deals anyway. So why not get something from them now instead of letting them walk away for nothing later in the summer? So that's what they did. Um, you know, so that's I think that's what Eisman's mindset was, and he did what he needed to accomplish for that trade deadline.
Yep, of course. So can't wait to see what next season brings to the table. Not to mention the draft and free agency. Gotta watch out for those.
For
So
sure. There's others, but that wasn't all that went on with the Wings this week, obviously, because they were in the midst of a bad 6 game losing streak. It had started last week, with that unfortunate 2-0 shutout loss to the Lightning.
three
Uh,
nothing.
3-0, excuse me, correct, because they added the empty netter right at the end. But for the most part, it was thanks to the brilliant excellence of Vasilevsky, a 2-0 game, despite the Red Wings' best intentions. Now, I don't know if they were discouraged or what, but it seemed like that momentum lingered or carried on with them to the next few games because their offense just seemed to be on a sputtering path. It was beginning to mirror what I had seen at the earlier start of the season, where the offense just couldn't, or a stretch at the middle part of the season where the offense just couldn't get a rhythm going. You know, 1 goal, 2 goals at best if you're lucky to score during these past few games. Yeah, they scored 4 goals against Seattle, but they still lost that one in overtime. So it wasn't until just the other night against the Blackhawks where they finally able to get off the snide, get off the skid. Now, thankfully, they are at least 6 points back of Pittsburgh in that second wild card spot. But when you have an offense that isn't producing the way you like it to be, seemingly getting to its own tailspin, scoring only 2 power play goals, period, throughout this past few game stretch. That's embarrassing, no matter what type of hockey team you are. And the fact that you're seeing other key players, the other star players on these other teams that you're facing, whether it be Nikita Kucherov, whether it be Claude Giroux or someone else, you're seeing the type of development from star players on these other teams that the Red Wings are just not there yet. And it's like you're looking into a glimpse of what you want your team to be, but you're not there yet. But like I said, they did end this losing streak with a win against the rival Blackhawks, and they're just, like I mentioned before, just 6 points back. So there's still some games left in the season to where you could make things interesting. But again, I think with the moves Yzerman made before and on the trade deadline, not to mention the fact that you saw how this team performed as of late, especially with that horrific double header of destruction, of disaster in Ottawa against the Senators, then yeah, the best bet is to probably sell on this season and see what you can do for next year.
Yep. So right now, as I go to the NHL app, the Red Wings are at 29, 26, and 9 with 67 points. 67 points, 6 back of the Pittsburgh Penguins, 73 points. Still 4 teams, Penguins, the Florida Panthers, 70 points. The Sabres, the Senators, Sabres, and Capitals all in a 3-way tie with 68. Yeah, the Red Wings lost to the Flyers in that 6-game skid. The Flyers still 8 points back of those Wings.
Mm-hmm.
The Flyers at 59 points, followed by the Canadiens at 57, but so on and so forth. But still, again, the Red Wings just need a level up at least a bit before they get ready.
For sure.
So, now here's a big topic. The Lions, as we transition to NFL pro football, the Lions are 3-1 Vegas odds-on favorites to land Baltimore Ravens star quarterback Lamar Jackson. And I know some people, most Lions fans, think that Jared Goff is the answer because he's improved, but not quite. Lamar Jackson has proven more than Jared Goff that Lamar Jackson can win more games and more playoff games too. I know Jared Goff has reached the Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams, only to fall short to the New England Patriots when they still had Bill Belichick and Tom Brady still as their still on their within that Patriots organization. But that was even without Matt. That was especially without Matt Patricia, actually, because Matt Patricia was bad.
Yeah, that was when he was in the middle of deconstructing the Lions in the remaining years of Stafford's prime.
Well, that was in year one, actually. That was in year one, actually, because
still, it was during Patricia's tenure.
Yeah, still during that, but yeah, it just fell apart for them. But Dan Campbell and Jared Goff already, wow, they've reconstructed the Lions. But they couldn't do it by themselves. They got other offensive weapons like Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, all those other guys.
Period. That offensive line in general.
Penny Sewell,
Ragnow,
Taylor Decker. Yes.
When you have
Also got the defensive guys like Aiden Hutchinson, who had 3 picks.
So here's basically
Kirby
my
Joseph, Jeff
feelings.
Okuda.
Basically, here's my feelings on this when it comes to Lamar Jackson. I was going to get to him momentarily, but he is the topic of discussion now. So here's what I think: the fact that we're seeing he's listed as the betting odds favorite to land him out, other than Baltimore, because the expectation is the relationship between the Ravens and Lamar is getting more distant and more despondent by the day and by the week. So you're on the expectation that Lamar's not going to be in Baltimore next year. Well, what's going to be the next best team, next best fit? The team most likely to come court or suit for him, because parameters of signing him, this amount draft picks and whatnot. So, long story short, it looked like, even right down to the fact that you had Adam Schefter all but getting ready to drop it like it was a breaking news bomb, that the Falcons were interested in making the trade for Lamar Jackson. Once that passed, and once we found out that the Falcons were no longer interested, they were out. Then now you're seeing these reports, start seeing these murmurs start to come about, uh, whether it be the odds bettors saying this, or going back to reports to last year or even a couple weeks ago of, apparently, according to Lamar. Well, excuse me, I'm getting that confused with Jalen Ramsey. Excuse me, but there were reports last year of Lamar Jackson, or those in Lamar's camp, saying that one of his preferred destinations, if he were to leave Baltimore, was Detroit. That is worth noting something. So I think it could be something of where, if he were to come here, he must really like and appreciate what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have been doing. He must like what the culture that the Lions are trying to build, amongst other things. That's the only reason I would expect, I could even fathom why he would want to consider coming here. But in terms of what the Lions, if you're in a position to where it's a realistic possibility, if you come up with a package, a not so drastic package to land a player of his caliber, of his talent, at a position, in let's be honest, to have a game changer at quarterback means a whole lot these days in the NFL. So if you have the chance to go and get one, that's already, in my view, has proven himself to be an absolute game changer. The fact that he's a former MVP, former Heisman Trophy winner, that speaks for itself. Why not? I mean, I'm all in for going all in and shooting for the stars, especially when you consider the fact that you may very well be the favorites to win the NFC North next year anyway. The Packers are likely going to be divorcing themselves from Aaron Rodgers. Speaking of Rodgers, if he flat out leaves the NFC in general, who does that leave in terms of teams or quarterbacks that you feel that your team in the position could be in a better spot in? Not that many. And in terms of teams in general, if you were to make a move like this, I think it's fair to say that, bare minimum, bare minimum, this will make the Lions be seen as a top three contender in the entire NFC. The only two teams you would put above them will be the Eagles and the Niners. I think that does say something. Only caveats I would have to be where I don't even have concerns about Lamar's health or his longevity, about whether or not his body could hold up, because you got to remember that was mostly based on the fact that he had to, for the majority of those games, be a one-man army and carry that team for him. If you put Lamar Jackson's offensive capability and his athleticism and what he brings to the table behind this offensive line, with the weapons that we already have, the receivers that you already mentioned, the running backs you already mentioned, Lamar's dual threat capability alone would create better one-on-one opportunities for the likes of Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially for Jamison Williams, who we'll get to in a moment as well, and even for your tight ends as well. We've seen how deceptive Brock Wright can be in open routes, open space, and screens. If you have a Lamar Jackson up there commanding the attention of a spy or a linebacker, that can leave also something for your linebacker to do some damage across the middle as well. So while there's big pros and big caveats to getting a player of this caliber, for what I just mentioned, especially when you consider the fact that, hey, listen, I've been a Lions fan for practically my entire life. Okay, I'll be 30 in May. I've yet to see this team be seen as a remote contender for anything. If you're telling me I have a chance to put myself in a position to where I could see the Lions legit competing for a championship. This could be seen as a move that you would want to make. Think of it as swinging for the fences. Think of it as like when the Tigers got Prince Fielder, or when the Red Wings did their spending in the summer 2001 to load up that 2002 super team. Think of it as an
Asha and
all
Robitaille.
exactly. That was an all in move. Those were all in moves, and just like this would be seen as an all in move. The thing is, though,
Pistons getting Rasheed Wallace.
exactly, another aspect, another example of that. Um, but the thing is, with a move like this, what would be the trade off? What would be in terms of the cost of making a move like this? Because whatever money that would be thinking of giving to some of these players, potentially, whether or not you would have enough money to do so anyway, you got to think a good portion of that has got to go to Lamar now, with in terms of at least guaranteeing that first year clip of his contract, because that all comes down to the guaranteed money and parameters and what he want to make per year, per average, and whatnot. All that's business stuff, and too long don't read territory. But once you factor that in, are you gonna have enough money to bring back guys like John Kaminsky? Are you gonna have enough money to bring back guys like Isaiah Bugs, like a DJ Chark? You know, especially bringing back Jamal Williams as well. I think that's key and essential for the Lions, in my opinion. We bringing back Jamal Williams without question, and not to mention that uh, it would also take away from potential money that you want to use to go after anyone in free agency. Say, for example, you want to upgrade your linebacker spot. You want to go after, say, maybe a Tremaine Edmonds from the Bills. I could see that happening because get this right. I already viewed John Kaminsky when he was brought here last year. What he was just a third round pick or undrafted pick from the Falcons. Didn't work out too well with them. I thought he was tremendous here for the Lions last year. I think with his presence, with him on certain snaps, he gave Aiden Hutchinson the best possibility to have some of his best moments and best plays throughout the course of the season. And I noticed that a good portion of those came when Kaminsky was on the field. So I'm just saying, he gives you some versatility and depth on that D line that in a way reminds me of a Kyle Vanden Bosch. We're going back to the era of Jim Schwartz here, but that's how I view Kaminsky as that KVB role. Um, Whereas if you want to say what can you do to spend in free agency to fix that linebacker, you could easily say, "Oh, that would be like when we got Stephen Tulloch." So if you were to say get Tremaine Edmonds, but again, that's just the opposite end of the spectrum. If you were to say not go in on this, but myself personally, if the Lions had a chance to go for it, I would at least make the call. You know what I mean? You can't say that, oh, we weren't interested in contacting them because we didn't. If we felt like no, I think for something like this,
They should get
at
him.
least you make a call, or at least make the call to see what Baltimore's biting at, to see if they'll nibble, and see if they'll take you up on anything that they're willing to offer or that you're willing to offer.
Yeah, and the question is now, can they get him? It depends on the money.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, only time will tell there. It's all about the money. So, and also not to mention the chemistry that Lamar Jackson and head coach Dan Campbell might have future-wise
Yeah,
if they do
exactly.
somehow successfully land him.
Because you got to remember the team rallied behind each other and with each other for a good reason, especially behind Jared Goff. Would you?
Especially.
It may be considered a risk to say, okay, we saw that, but we see this shiny new toy in Lamar Jackson. We're gonna go get that. I, Again, that's not up for me to decide because guess what? It ain't my money. Okay, that's up for Sheila and Brad to decide. It ain't my money. So y'all do what you want to do with that. But in terms of chemistry in the locker room, that'll be one X factor aspect of this potential deal to look out for. What impact would that have on the Lions locker room as a result?
Yep. And I mentioned Jamal Williams at least.
Yeah.
Still, um, they have not decided on whether they should re-sign him or not. But they,
Well, from what I've heard, there is mutual interest that both sides want to make sure that the priority is that yes, Jamal wants to come back and wants to be here. I compare this to the Dylan Larkin situation. I don't think it'll be as drawn out as we're anticipating it to be. Free agency hasn't officially started yet because you still got to factor in cap space, what you're going to have, who you're bringing back to begin with, who are you going to cut, if you're going to make certain deals or certain moves. All that has to be put into consideration before you still start going out and making start signing these contracts. So the Lions know that, and Jamal knows that. But I appreciate the fact that they're at least there's mutual interest. They can at least agree on the fact that hey, we both know what we want. We agree on the same thing. Now let's see if we can come to the deal with a good enough offer that both sides would like.
Right. So that's also good news.
It is because when you consider the fact that the Lions running back situation in general, it's not just Jamal Williams. There have been questions about, hey, what are you going to do with DeAndre Swift? Are you going to keep him? Are you going to trade him? Are you going to draft another running back? Are you potentially going to replace him? For what it's worth, Dan Campbell has stated, he sees things that that is still possible that can be used for DeAndre. I think it's just a matter of making sure that he's properly healthy and is able to withstand that. And now that's one thing to wish for that, but it's another thing to expect that. And if you're expecting DeAndre to either, to be healthy or be healthy enough to carry the load of whatever role you want him to be, that's a lot of the expectation. But we'll see what happens here. I'm not so sure. Again, the Lions could still easily draft a running back in, let's say, in the mid rounds, third round possibility. If they were, I think you could see a couple of names jump off. Now, I think if they were to decide to do on one, like say late first round, early second, or in the second round, a name that's coming to people's attention will be B. John Robinson. Now, from Texas. Now, I don't know if Bijan will be available by then, or if the Lions will feel like, or if he is the running back the Lions will be interested in getting. Now, for my money, I might have mentioned his name before, but if not, I'll mention it again. If I would want the Lions to pick a running back in this draft, it would be Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama, because not only can he give you great, outstanding breakaway home run speed, especially behind this offensive line, but he has shown great capabilities to be not just a versatile running back, but also a great pass catcher out the backfield. Now, granted, that is essentially what you want, what you're paying DeAndre Swift to do in a nutshell. But again, if you're still having questions or concerns about what you want to do with Swift long term, you may again be doing your actions will be doing a lot more talking than your words if you draft another running back this year. So again, that's just a quite an interesting position to keep an eye on if you're the Lions, because let's not forget the fact that they had an exceptional running game. Now, granted, it all starts and ends with their offensive line. But if you don't got the backs to push through to that second level and that third level and get touchdowns the way we saw the Lions running backs did, you can't do anything with your offense to set things up to be as explosive as they were. So if they can maintain a good depth with their running backs, that'll be another good sign for their offense for next year. Because you already got Ben Johnson, you're bringing back your offensive line. Let's see what you could do with your running backs. You feel confident with your tight ends. Let's see if you can add another one or two through the draft or free agency. And if you somehow swing for the fences and get Lamar Jackson, hey, throw a party.
Yeah, if you successfully land him. Now, the question is, you got to make sure it works. Again, like I said, with the chemistry, not only with the money, but with the chemistry on the field.
For sure. I think you can use that to transition to another person on this team, which, by the way, I can transition to, because when I mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs, the way he runs, the way he can be such an impact and X factor on the field, it does remind me of Jameson Williams, just in running back form.
Yep. All right. So
speaking of JMO,
Yep, true. So the Michigan Wolverines, the first half was a tight one, but the second half, uh, Michigan's shooting accuracy was off.
Too many turnovers, also.
Yeah, too many
Yes,
turnovers.
not
I
just
saw them.
not just bad shooting, but also where was the paint production in the second half? They could not buy a freaking basket at the rim. It was virtually non-existent, and you have Hunter Dickinson.
Can't do
That's
it all by himself.
I know, but still, and granted, he's had himself a fair share of bad moments this season, for
Right.
sure. So he's not exactly blameless in this aspect.
It's not perfect.
Exactly. He's got some culpability to deal with this too. But this just speaks to how this was an all around unfortunate bad season. It took a team chemistry effort for sure to have a season this bad. When you lose to Central Michigan, I know that's your chips, Taylor, but come
I
on, man.
know.
You can't lose to CMU. You
My
just
chips are
cannot.
shit. My chips are shit.
And you lose to
Really.
that.
They even have a terrible record in the MAC. They even lose to most of the MAC teams.
Oh, see. And compound that with the
Yet they
fact
somehow beat Michigan. Get out of here, for God's sake!
exactly. And then the
Still
other
can't believe it.
and the other consistent one possession losses, overtime
In Ann
losses,
Arbor, for God's sake.
losses down the stretch where you keep blowing games, not scoring enough points. This was a consistent theme that we saw all year. Now Juwan Howard's going to have to make some changes. Changes to how he runs the offense. Changes to how he runs certain matchups and schemes, because there's no excuse with the talent, a caliber of players that you had on this team, especially with your center. There's no way that you should not have missed out on a tournament the way you did this year. It was flat out embarrassing. Um, I'm not going to be on the fire Jawan camp, but I will
No,
say,
not yet.
that yeah, he's definitely got some stuff to prove and to make up for next year. I'd be fair with putting him on the hot seat. I probably wouldn't say he's got to do this, or he's fired next year, but he's definitely got to show a much better improvement and show that his players can be relied upon to be dependable both on the court and off court situations. Because we don't want to hear about, oh, he can't control his players, or they're showing bad temper, or this like that, because we already got the stigma.
Jumping the gun there.
Yeah, we already got the stigma of what we went through with Wisconsin last year. So um, I'm sure Jawan's already got certain eyes on him, or keeping an eye on him from that alone, stemming from that. And now when you factor in that, hey, this team may be affected as a result, just know, nip this in the bud as soon as you can next year, whether it be changing up staff, changing up rotations, or changing how you run the ball through certain players, like i.e. your subs cannot be,
Developing the rest of your players
and i.e. not focusing so much of the ball through your
mentally.
subs. And yeah,
Yeah.
that too. Because yeah, the way they played this season, no, they don't deserve to make the tournament. They certainly don't even deserve to make the NIT. So
They're done.
yeah, no, they're done. Trust me, they would have had to have essentially run the table and win the conference tournament to get that automatic qualifier spot.
They failed miserably.
And they absolutely failed miserably. This was
It's the truth.
essentially, endure and survive season. Win or you're out. Well, they just lost. They had their chance. They went in and they're out, and they'll probably stay out.
Yep. Uh, they had so much potential going into this season, or at least some. Maybe not so much, but still some. But man,
You expected
their
more than
players
this.
need to develop.
You expected way more than this. It's embarrassing.
But yeah, so gotta check on the Michigan State Spartans though. One of our associates, Darren Weiss, pointed out to us that the Spartans are as of right now projected to be the seventh seed in the Midwest region of the NCAA Division One men's basketball tournament. So at least the Spartans are safe, but they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, this has not been one of their strongest seasons either, to say
Yeah,
the least.
just another one of those seasons with Joey Hauser, Malik Hall, Jane Akins, other, other stuff, Tyson. Uh, but yeah, it's like the same thing. Foster Lawyer who played same season where they had Foster Lawyer on their roster, but the Spartans have had a rough couple to 3 years previously, including this one.
Hmm.
But somehow they made the big dance.
Credit to that coaching staff, first and foremost, obviously.
Starts at the top with the legendary head coach Tom Izzo. So, so that is college basketball. One more thing before we go. Jeff Moss of the Detroit Sports Rag has his original Twitter handle at Jeff Moss DSR finally reinstated after 5 full years. Buckle up, folks. So, Ed, we all missed that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see Jeff back on his original main account.
Yeah, kind of impossible to reinstate his website DetroitSportsRag.com now that it's shut. That's been shut down for almost a year,
Hmm.
for over a year now. So yeah, that's why over a year ago he called it quits. He retired.
From that aspect of what he usually does, yes, correct.
Yeah. So I wonder if he can build a website from a different rebuild a website from a different email. That
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We got to take these things.
there's
Uh,
Yahoo.com.
still that
His
just
old
takes.
his
That's
old his old email was DetroitSportsRag at gmail.com. I'd say DetroitSportsRag at Yahoo.com for a new email address
well.
for that
Again,
new
we'll
website.
we'll just see what he chooses to do and what he does with it. That's all we can
Right.
do. Everything's just up in the
Just
air
a
at this point.
suggestion,
Yeah, for sure.
but I'll leave that up to him. So
Hmm.
Jeff Moss, if you're hearing this, yeah, we we thought we'd help you out, but we'll leave that up to you. So that that is everything we've covered on another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Like its Facebook page, subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and listen in audio form on Spreaker. Business shoutouts go to Cali Tickets, one of Jeff Moss's old Detroit Sports Rag sponsors. Call Mark Goldman at 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Cadillac Nutrition. Download the Engage app to place an order for an iced or hot protein coffee, energy tea, or protein or post-workout shake. Creative embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on logo on my long sleeve shirt and T-shirt back there. United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan, where Detroit Sports Rag member Jim Lyons works. Ito Ramen House in Royal Oak, rated Detroit's best Japanese restaurant for consecutive years. Call 248-556-5775 or visit itoramenhouse.com or follow them on Instagram at Ito Ramen House. Stop by to place an order. You'll love their sushi. The Red Ox Tavern in Auburn Hills, home of the Detroit Sports Rag on TV pilot episode. Cuts by Melanie Rosted in Lake City, where I got my previous haircut, and usually where I get them. And Yin Yoga and Fitness in Traverse City, where I previously did my virtual yoga classes with the instructors that work there. So, we'll be back next Thursday night at 9:30 p.m. Until then, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Remember, the truth is out there. Thanks for watching. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Hit them with a hind, power to the people. We close our case.
Take care and stay safe, everybody.